Farlost, created by John Miro. 4. Lou followed the commander into the command and control airlock and, with 2 gentle nudges, redirected herself through the airlock assembly into Tank 1. She saw Dwyer reach for the door and pull himself quickly to the side, and barely had enough time to do the same before a figure in an all-black jumpsuit tumbled inelegantly through the opening. "A little help, Dwyer," ordered the man with black, slicked-back hair, awkwardly coasting into the airlock. Vice President Alexei Burkov, the newest of Hascom's 16 corporate VPs. The CO, still holding on to the frame of the airlock, clasped the VP's arm to steady him and patted him warmly on the back. "Thanks for joining us in command and control for the show, sir," he said, hiding his assistance behind the gesture and his words of appreciation. Outside of the 2 storm cellar tanks, heavily insulated with water and reflective shielding, the CNC was the only place the corporation had insulated to withstand the kind of radiation storm that was coming. CNC was specified a 5-man load, despite having more than enough gas, water, and supplies for twice that number to ride out a month. Regulations in the corporate world only counted if you were rank and file. Here, if a VEEP wanted a window seat, you changed the rules. Lou rolled her eyes, angry with herself that it still pissed her off, so she'd known what corporate life was like before she'd signed on with Hascom. It's not like she had any other choice of careers in space. Even still, knowing her, Dwyer had asked if she could handle the more fluid nature of regulations on a corporate boat when he offered her the job. She really had thought she could. Lou's lip curled as Burkov failed to even acknowledge Dwyer's help getting him back on course. Dwyer saw the snarl, and she fought her face back to stony and impassive, fixed on the opposite wall from where she floated. Once the VP was through the airlock, Lou started to apologize, but with a kind shake of Dwyer's head, she felt the need to do so dissipate. No apologies, she told herself. Just stop doing this shit. Dwyer deserved better from her, and she promised herself, for the 3rd time that day, that she would give him better. They pushed off for the far end of the long tube. HHL-6's hardened nose cone, much like the capsules that used to launch on ancient rockets, but a dozen times larger, sat atop variable layers, currently 5, of a dozen external fuel tanks surrounding a core of 19 softer-skinned cylinders, all joined together by struts and connecting passageways. Even when all the workstations that were now folded away into cabinets were fully deployed, Lou could look all the way down Tank 1 and through the house-sized airlock joining it to Tank 2. But with company sensor arrays already registering hazardous radiation incoming from the cosmic storm, the airlock ahead was shut, and the one behind them into the stem of HHL-6's mushroom-shaped command and control module would be closed as soon as Ed finished saying whatever it was he'd dragged Lou outside to say, and corralled the last guests headed for CNC. Beecham and his assistant. They would exchange pleasantries with the arrogant golden boy and his lackey, then they'd float back up and through the lock to CNC. And offer Burkov some peanuts and choice of in-flight entertainment. Shit. Already her promise to be a kindler, gentler corporate stooge wasn't working. Maybe tomorrow. Lou had only served aboard HHL-6 for 16 weeks. She'd known Ed Dwyer for a decade and served with him in the U.S. Space Forces on 3 separate postings. She'd had her share of trouble in that uniform, too. Now, the cartoony red, white, and black Hascom jumpsuits were the best she could hope for, and only thanks to the man floating beside her. "He's a pain in my ass, too," said the commander quietly, as the 2 floated down the center of the 100-meter tube, usually a hive of activity, but now eerily silent, with all workstations locked down, pressure doors sealed. Still, you can't talk about it so plainly. "Are we talking about Beecham or Villanueva?" asked Lou. "Or Burkov?" She couldn't resist adding his name to the list, but flashed him a sorry look immediately after. Dwyer sighed. "I wish I could say it wasn't like you to hassle the officers you served under. Only when they deserve it," Lou laughed. Besides, what good is a security chief who plays nice and follows all orders? This isn't the forces, Lou. Here you have to play nice with the brass. Private money pays for your ride, remember? A long silence followed the commander's words as they continued drifting down the center of the long hollow tube. Lou wasn't used to so much empty space in his spaceship. Not that 6 really was a spaceship, more like a space station, just one orbiting the sun instead of a planet. That didn't change the way it felt serving on her. Everyone on board the Hascom-owned and operated lab ran on 24-hour schedule and followed international laws for a spacefaring vehicle, except when they didn't follow those laws. For the most part, Hascom demanded a well-oiled machine, and Lou ensured they got it, even if she was struggling with the fine points of when to officially report a problem and when to whisper it in the appropriate ear. That was how she originally got on Villanueva's shit list, reporting things corporate culture usually dealt with unofficially, with that whisper in the right ear. Getting on Villanueva's bad side had been an honest mistake, a culture clash. Staying on Villanueva's bad side, though, that had been pure stubbornness and stupidity on her part. She tried to veer her mind from Villanueva and considered instead the marvel of recycling that she floated through. The series of fuel tanks jettisoned in orbit from spaceships once their fuel had been spent had been collected and welded together around sausage-shaped inflatable laboratories and airlock rings sprinkled with solar panels and sensor arrays. Then it had been cut loose to slingshot between the planets on an irregular orbit around the sun, tweaked as needed to pick up and drop off Hascom assets and personnel along the way. In some ways, her duties were much the same as pulling Space Forces or UN peacekeeper duty on one of the space stations or near-Earth cutters. In other ways, like comprehending which regulations she was supposed to follow and which ones she was supposed to work around, this boat was an alien world. I'm trying, Ed, but private property or not, some of the things Hascom traditionally overlooks would be jailable offenses on a Coast Guard cutter pulling over a billionaire in a private yacht. You said it. It's a Hascom boat. You know that makes it different. I'm serious, Lou, Dwyer hissed. Villanueva isn't the only person on 6 you make uncomfortable. I told you when I brought you in, things were different here, and to come talk it over with me anytime you weren't sure what to do. Lou gritted her teeth. Ed, I'm goddamn grateful you got me this gig. I really am. But operational and crew security is my job. Kissing up to Villanueva and the other corporate animals isn't. Dwyer was silent a moment longer, then chuckled as they approached the far end of the tank in time to see the massive red square in the display beside the airlock into the next tank wink out, and a yellow one take its place. Someone was entering the airlock. A certain, very annoying someone. What the hell? I'll retire soon, Dwyer chuckled. What are you going to do, get me fired? And if you want to get yourself fired, who am I to stop you? Lou's righteous indignation fizzled out as she followed close by Dwyer, reaching for one of the dozens of hand loops floating near the airlock and turning her body to bleed off speed with her muscles. That last shot hit home. She knew she was lucky for her position and pay draw. Corporate jobs didn't grow on trees, especially for someone with her disciplinary record. She knew she was letting him down, and she felt miserable about it. Don't sweat it, Lou, Dwyer said, as they floated toward the closed airlock. You haven't shot yourself fatally, not yet. It's a change going private. Don't I know it? Lou swallowed profanity she aimed at herself. She was working in 0G, in a position of authority no less, because the man beside her had cashed in a not inconsiderable number of personal chips to get her back into space. Sure, but somehow you got your head around it. Sorry that it's taking me so long, Ed, Lou forced herself to say. I forget what it's like for you sometimes, not least when you have to deal with Villanueva after I set him off. Commander Ed Dwyer waved the apology away. Villanueva talks tough, but he's a good guy. He never served is all, and he doesn't get where you're coming from. Don't beat yourself up too bad. You can still shift gears. I just hope I learn enough ropes I don't hang myself once you're drawing a pension. Dwyer nodded. Yup, that's the nut of it. Ouch. So what do we do with Burkov for the next, 5 days? He can sit at the second officer's seat. Protocol puts our second officer at the ass end of 6 until the emergency condition passes. We'll regale the Veep with stories if he wants to hear them, and we'll give him first dibs from the stores at every meal. And we'll remember he is our boss. Capiche? Lou grinned. She had a history of hearing capiche from Dwyer. Just that word from him helped settle her. All those other times involved firefights or sucking chest wounds. She could hack this. She had to, if she wanted to keep flying. Farlost. Music by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Learn more at servingworlds.com.